Welcome to the last episode of season 4 of The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. This was a recap episode where the entire team and a few others were sitting at a round table and discussing the data they had collected during the season. And there were a few pieces of information that we hadn't heard before that were shocking. This episode, it had some really interesting nuggets, don't you think, Jimmy?
It was an amazing episode. It was. It was an episode that went like this, like extreme highs and extreme lows, because so much of it was a recap looking back at the season. And if you haven't seen the season or only caught parts of it, it'd be a great show for you because you would see stuff that you hadn't seen before. But for you and I, where we break down and analyze every episode, we had to sit through that. But the new stuff that was brought forward, mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. Even for me with my skeptical glasses on, come on, it's a bird. You know, it was pretty cool, full of drama.
It was. So at the table, we had the team that we're all familiar with, but in this image we have a few other people, and I wish I would have gotten a picture of the guy sitting right next to Brandon, who was Gary Herbert, the governor of Utah from 2009 to 2021, I believe. And then we also have Brandon Fugel's brother, who is the pilot, Cameron Fugel, Jay Stratton, and then also right here the CEO of Omnitech. Sorry, I'm just like trying to. Okay, the person right there, which is Jim Royston, who is not only the CEO of Omnitech, but also the former executive director of the ISS laboratory, which I wasn't familiar with prior. But during this episode, when Travis was doing his typical monologue that he does for every episode, that's how he introduced Jim. And I was thinking, was that mentioned previously in previous episodes?
Cristina, that's a good catch, and I'm glad you brought that point up because I did the same thing. I was like, what? ISS? Oh, whoa, heavy hitter. You know, I had not known that prior, and that was revealed. Also, they had the two Jims sitting next to each other, which I thought was pretty interesting too as well. So when they addressed Jim, they both looked. Throughout the episode, I caught that because I'm a Jim, and I thought that was pretty funny. But yes, and they all gathered at Brandon Fugel's office. They're high atop the office building in the boardroom there, and I would say that this was overall run by Eric Bard, and I thought he did a very, very effective presentation.
And that's how it should have been, mainly because he is the person analyzing all of the data. And we're going to get into that. But also, for those watching this live on YouTube, there is a poll up. And it asks, how would you review the 4th season of the Skinwalker Ranch? Right now, we have 55 votes. We have 161 people watching this live. Go ahead and share us your thoughts on what you thought about this season. Okay, that poll is going to be right on the YouTube channel. Now, in the previous episode, it was this ginormous experiment where they were practically blitzing up the triangle, bringing in some really brilliant minds and brilliant equipment. And what they had mentioned in this episode, since this was a kind of recap episode, Eric had said, we got at least a terabyte of data. Okay, that is immense. And let me tell you this, knowing that now, like, I feel bad for Eric that he had to just comb through all of that.
And it was, you know, a terabyte of data, right? So they, from that one night, right? From that one night. And I'm thinking Eric has got to go through this and make sense of it all.
Yeah.
And apparently he got the job done in about 3 days. Should I talk? Okay.
Go ahead.
What you're looking at here, and it's the image after. Leave this one up. Leave this one up for now. This is the GPS tracking data of over the triangle with the drones from the experiment that night. Now, this is the GPS tracking data. And what stands out to me when you first look at this is the swirling, what I don't know what you would call that, the DNA strand almost of the yellow string coming down. Now, each point is a GPS feed. Okay, so you have the red, you have the yellow, you have the blue, and each one is receiving and sending GPS coordinate data. I'm assuming you have the next image, and what reveals here.
What are you referring to the next image? I just want to make sure that we're on the same page.
The same view, but the underground.
I don't have that one, but I have the underground from the other company.
Okay, you're not allowed to talk about that yet. Yeah, we're gonna. This spoiler alert, everybody. It's all going to be revealed in this broadcast. So, it was just too incredible. Okay, so there was another image presented by Eric Bard. Same image, but the GPS coordinate data continuing underground. Okay, so which is something that has been talked about a lot this season about GPS data, location data going underground when it shouldn't be there, and up to and including time differences, which include up to about a quarter of a second, which should never happen with GPS data. And anyway, this extends under the ground in multiple points. So many, I'm talking about dozens of those 250 drones were sending and receiving GPS coordinates underground. And that was that was pretty crazy. And to see it laid out there, because you can kind of visualize it, but when you see it the way that Eric Bard is presenting the data, it's a pretty compelling evidence. I don't know what's going on, but that is very strange.
It was very odd. Now, during this pretty large meeting, and I'm going to go back to this image. Again, this is only half of the people that showed up. It was a lot of people, but there wasn't a lot of people talking, if that makes sense. So the head of this meeting was Eric Bard sharing the data, which was fantastic. Then you had Travis Taylor talking and mentioning the traversable wormhole with that void that was taken from Omnitech's equipment, and Athena as well, where they're saying there must be a portal here, as it's been rumored for centuries. Okay. And there were a few rumors that I feel like have in some ways been solidified after this roundtable. But there was one thing that really caught my attention, and I'm going to read this quote verbatim. And that was Cameron Fugel, the pilot. This guy right here. Let me zoom in on him. This man. He looks at Jay Stratton, who was the former director of the UAPTF, and he says, with your experience with UAPs, I'd like to hear your perspective. You're awfully quiet. Is this the first time you've seen anything like this? And Jay replies, that's why I'm quiet. There is something going on here, and it's something very strange. Now, okay, going back. This is why I'm bringing this up. One, Jay didn't say much. He had a lot of different facial expressions. I took a few screenshots of his face. Many of them, in my opinion, were kind of like, yeah, I already know this. Or kind of, what am I doing here? I'm already familiar with this information, right? That's my viewpoint, merely from his expressions that were shown on camera. But when he said, that's why I'm being quiet, you would assume he is referring to the second part question of Cameron's question that he said, have you seen anything like this? But what if he was referring to the aspect of, I'd like to hear your perspective since you have an experience with UAPs? Was that why he was being quiet? Because he had signed NDAs and he cannot provide certain information. You can take it either way. And that's something that caught my attention that I wanted to share out loud.
Very interesting take. And the other right after that, and you're right about that, and you know what they say, it's the quiet people you got to look out for, right? So there's always that. Right. There's always that. And then Jay followed up with, he goes, man, what's going on now and what I'm seeing now compared to when I first came on the ranch, things are really getting crazy. And I thought things were strange back then. But today I am seeing really, really strange phenomena. And I thought that was a pretty good takeaway, which was the follow up to the. I'm staying quiet right now, and so yeah, it is the quiet ones. You have to keep your eye on.
That's right, because the ones that talk the most usually are the ones that have the least amount of information. But for Jay to even be there, and that's another thing, for Jay Stratton to even be there was a very strategic decision because he didn't necessarily have to be there since he's not part of the team. He no longer researches Skinwalker Ranch, at least to our knowledge, right? Why was he invited in if from the times that he was there, he was kind of there as a guinea pig to see how the ranch would respond. Right?
So Cristina just said, Jimmy, you talk too much, therefore you know nothing.
That is not what I said.
That's
But
exactly
but my favorite quote from Aristotle is
looking at me.
That's not she's looking at the camera. But my favorite quote from Aristotle is to know all. No, now I'm messing up on my own words, but to know all is to know nothing. And that is one of something that has always stuck with me. When you tell yourself that you don't know a lot, that's when you're willing to learn more. But when you say, I know everything, I'm the smartest person here, you're not. And so that's something that I've always held very near and dear to my heart, because then you're willing to grow forward versus saying, I know everything, I'm the smartest being on the planet.
Right.
That's not cool.
Sounds like a few people in the Fade to Black chat at night. Okay, so Cristina, there were a lot of things that were shown in the show. So let's go with what is it that you want to present first? I'm looking at the clock.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of time. We have a lot to cover. But Tasaka, thank you so much, Tasaka, as Jimmy says.
Tasaka.
I'm so glad you can make it to the stream, and thank you so much for supporting the channel. So getting into the real meat and potatoes of this, because we're not going to go over the whole recap of the season. If you've been watching these reviews, you're pretty up to date. But what was interesting, and here's the wormhole that was mentioned, the idea there is a wormhole. They saw some UFOs that were captured on FLIR. Here they're using the embossed filter, where they saw an orb-like thing, object, and then it morphed into other objects, kind of like the Aguadilla footage that took place in Puerto Rico. That was pretty interesting, but we've covered that before. Here's that kind of in segments, when it was one object versus when it was multiple objects. They thought, and I'm really glad they brought this up. They brought the idea that it could have been birds. Travis said geese, and I'm like, okay, I'm really happy they said that, because that's what I said last week. What if it was birds? But this happened at night, this type of migration, which isn't common amongst birds unless it's owls. That was a comment that I read right here on this channel, and I'm very grateful for those that bring in their insights on that, because I wasn't familiar. All right, but moving on, here is that void that was collected by Omnitech. But here's the goods. Now we're getting into the last 15 minutes of the episode, where a lot of interesting information was dropped. What?
Take this off the screen. Take this off the screen.
Okay, we'll go here.
Take that off the screen.
Okay, we'll go here.
Screen. And by the way, just let me make a comment here to Android. Tuesdays are busy for us. You're right, but today is Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah, it's Wednesday. No, just pull this down.
Okay.
Do you have the image of the object coming in and out of the mesa?
No, because we've covered it before.
That's not the point. Okay, so
that is the point.
I would have told you this earlier, but Cristina cut me off earlier. Yeah, I don't want to hear it. Save it for the show. So I did save it for the show. I didn't tell you earlier, and now you want to skip past my very important point, which is this. They caught an object, a UAP, which appears to come down from the helicopter. Cameron's flying. They've got a GoPro outside of the helicopter, and it's shooting going forward. Helicopter's flying over Skinwalker, and they catch this white dot, this white orb that comes down behind the mesa. And as it comes down behind the mesa, you don't see it anymore. And then this is how they showed it previously in the season. They cut. And then they show another piece of the video of this object coming out of the mesa. So they insinuate, they plant the idea that this object went through the mesa, but you didn't see the full video. But you did in last night's show, which was very important. How long was that footage? Was it something that was conveniently edited by the producers of the show? Was there 5 minutes in between? Could it have been the same object? No. So last night they showed the footage, and it is a continuous shot. And when you see it in the whole video in its entirety, that object comes down, pause, and then comes out of the front of the mesa. It's like 2 seconds in between. That was very, very compelling footage. I don't know what's going on. And it may be a coincidence that an anomaly, a bird flew down and then a bird launched out of the front of the mesa, whatever, some natural occurrence. But when you see it continuous in the video, come down behind the mesa and then right there fly out in front of it. I don't know what's going on, Cristina, but the footage itself is whole and complete. We don't have anything to complain about here. My complaint about that has been removed. You know, it is one continuous piece of footage of what appears to be a UAP traveling through the rocks of the mesa. I think it's incredible.
I'm happy you did not share that information with me backstage, because that was new to me. And I'm actually really glad that you brought that up, because that is an interesting thing to mention there, that they were able to show the full footage, at least to our understanding, compared to what, 2 weeks ago, last 2 weeks ago, where they didn't. So that's cool. But now we're getting into the meat and potatoes, double potatoes, French fries, and boiled potatoes.
This is pretty crazy stuff. So they bring on Jeremiah. Who is Jeremiah, Cristina?
Jeremiah Pate is the CEO, the creator of Luna Sound. And just to kind of backtrack, him and his team went on the ranch. They had a ginormous weather balloon to be able to document what's going on under the mesa. And they came across with this data that has not been mentioned in previous episodes. Jimmy, what are we looking at here?
Okay, so it's a ground penetrating radar that is utilized from a very high altitude. So you can look at a big swath of land, all a geographic location all at one time. So in this case, I forget what they went up to, but it was tens of thousands of feet, and then turn around and pointed everything back at the mesa. And the whole baked potato, absolutely, in this case. And so they went back, they poured through the data. This is what you're looking at here. This is the first set of data. The purple areas of data that you see here these are indicating depth. Okay, so purple is about 10 meters or 30 feet below the surface. The yellow and green are past that. Now, he didn't give a specific number, like, okay, this is 20 meters, but he said that it is deeper and that the green and the yellow are at different depths. And it looks to me like yellow is the deepest and green is in between. Now, he didn't say what this was, but it did cover the ranch and the ranch area. So this, again, we didn't see an above view of this, but what he did show next was just as interesting, but it was what he said, Cristina. Look
yes.
at this right here. So Jeremiah says these representations are similar to the data that you just saw. But what this indicates are voids.
And then he goes into detail. Well, Brandon asks, what do you mean by voids? From your professional opinion, what are you referring to? And he says it could be a tunnel system. These purple dots are about 60 feet wide with a very high metallic content. And then he later goes into detail stating that it seems to have an artificial explanation. These aren't natural things that have been caused naturally. It has to be created artificially in some way. And that was really interesting. Now, when I first saw this image, it looks kind of like what you read or what you see in like a doctor's book, or about like the body. It looks like a giant intestine to me. But I found what he had to say very interesting. And again, these purple dots are 60 feet wide. We're not sure how long they are per se, but there were multiple dots consistently from outside of the mesa into the mesa and all throughout the ranch. Yeah, Cindy, all throughout the ranch, where they captured these voids. And he is assuming that they're tunnels, but Jeremiah isn't fully sure, but that is his professional opinion on this.
He I about fell out of my chair.
Oh yeah, I feel you.
I mean, I was like, did he say what? So, to be clear, in Jeremiah's professional opinion, looking at the data, that these are artificial, not natural tunnels of metallic substance. So wait. Now we don't know when they were constructed or how they got there, or if they are indeed metallic tunnels, right? But to say something like this with this data represented, it's a dramatic turn. You know what? For me, if I'm like Brandon, I know what Brandon was doing. He was already doing the math. He was doing the money count. Okay, how much am I spending now? Because I don't have a choice. It's like once you take it this far and you get this kind of data, what do you do next? I can't imagine. It looks like, okay, Cristina, this is what I think. And by the way, there are the green balls there, and there are yellow balls in Christina's picture. Go back to the tunnel shot. You can see the green and the yellow. See that? Okay. Everybody see that? So those are throughout the chain. And it's Christina's grab here isn't as clear as the other picture that she had up earlier, but it's represented the same way. It's a massive amount of confirmed data collection is what that is. But it looks like down at the bottom, move your hand back down to the bottom. I think that's the entrance. And I think it's pretty easy to get to. Now, I am sure that Jeremiah's got all of this pinpointed. He's got depth, he's got location, you know where to go, and you don't have a choice. I think you get out there with a backhoe. It doesn't seem like it's too deep. Remember, he said 10 meters, that's 30 feet, right? 30 feet. Now, this is the only image I want everybody to understand. This is the only image that he described as the tunnel system. Now, go back to the other image, Cristina. Okay, this is in an oval shape. So you've got a tunnel system, and what I think is the yellow and the green, I think those are rooms. All right, those are voids at different levels. And so you would have access or have to achieve access. That's what I think is going on. But the purple dots that are connected, I think that is just all one continuous ring of tunnels that occurs across either underneath the mesa, in front of the mesa, but certainly the width of the mesa on Skinwalker Ranch. No indication. Did you pick up on how big this anomaly section was versus the size of Skinwalker Ranch? I didn't catch that.
He didn't provide that information, at least to my knowledge. Maybe we might get that sometime in the future, maybe in the next season. But also, it might be mentioned for the insider membership. The team also does reviews as well. So if you have an insider membership, maybe they will cover that. But Cindy asks, can you speculate what the tunnels would be for? Well, there have been consistent rumors about Skinwalker Ranch that there are tunnels under the mesa. And what Jeremiah Pate had provided to the team can somewhat solidify those rumors. Now, are these tunnels? We do not know. He just mentioned that they are voids. But Jimmy brings up an interesting point that these other spots, the green and the yellow dots that are a little bit deeper from the tunnels, could be rooms. Is that a possibility? At this point, anything's on the table. I think that it is possible, but we won't have those answers until they dig, until they kind of do a deeper dive literally into the mesa. But Eric did mention, he was like, this is shocking information, but he also said we still need to maintain that surgical approach. We do not want to destroy what we're attempting to find, just like archaeologists that have to like use a brush, okay, to comb dirt, and that is awful. It's so bad for your back, I can assume here. But a lot of people are just like, oh, just blow up the mesa, just dig into the mesa. But they don't understand is that it can affect anything that they are trying to preserve. We don't have that information just yet. Now, if you are enjoying this review so far, hit the like button. We have 300 people watching, 115 likes. So go ahead and click that, because hitting the like button lets us know that you want us to do more reviews for the next season. Okay. So do that before we continue.
I just remembered something. Okay. So we need to correct what was said earlier. I just remembered something. Jeremiah said the tunnels were about 10 feet wide, that the yellow and green dots represented rooms that were 60 feet wide. That's what he said. Okay, so he said that the tunnels, so everybody, I just remembered. I can say this in confidence now, with 99% certainty, that he said that the tunnels, go back to the other image, go back to the tunnel, that these are 10 feet wide. Okay, and that the green and yellow dots indicate rooms that are 60-foot open spaces. So, and when he said that, somebody at the table went, "Oh, bigger than this room that they were sitting in."
The senator of Utah had mentioned that.
Yeah, the governor. Right.
Governor, yes, thank you.
So, but the tunnel itself, 10 feet wide. Okay, and so if you go back to the other image, I believe we can probably walk away with the same idea here, that the purple dots are at a 10-foot or a 10-meter depth, 30 feet down, 10-foot wide tunnels, and then the green and yellow dots represent 60-foot voids. That's a pretty big void. That's the size of a house. That's pretty big. That's a pretty big opening. Now, could it be something? Look, if we're going to speculate, okay, what if we go with known stuff? Think Valley of the Kings, right, in Egypt. Could this be a tomb complex from ancient indigenous tribes, or another civilization from the distant past? Could it be that? Could it be a ceremonial place? Absolutely, for sure. Could it be, then let's take it a step further. Is it part of an alien base, right? And we go in and it's like Prometheus. It's like the movie Alien, and we find something like that. Wouldn't that be cool? It's very large, and I don't know if these hallways, if these passages are indeed metallic structures. I'm not so sure we had Bronze Age weapons being used. I mean, most spear points are flint, right? That we find. Right. Arrowheads and stuff like that. Those are flint, and I'm not sure if there was any Bronze Age action going on here in North America until the colonization happened, the invasion of us. But yeah, very, very, very interesting. Definitely a great season finale and a
Oh,
showstopper.
for sure. And that was something that we were all looking forward to when Luma Sound originally went on the ranch to collect data. That's what we wanted to see, at least the audience. Now, another big takeaway from this episode, and this is right near the end, is what Omnitech said, that they are now partnering with Skinwalker Ranch. They are going to be applying Athena all across the ranch, having sensors speak to one another, using AI to look for things that look anomalous, that look odd. And the sensors will speak to themselves, to each other, excuse me. And then they will say, oh, I just saw something really weird. Let's turn all the cameras in that direction. Now, this is something that so many people have wanted. Thousands of people, I can assume here, have contacted Eric directly saying, why don't you get AI involved? Now, with like your average AI, it can't really detect things that are super anomalous, that are super, super odd, or also incredibly fast. But maybe with Omnitech, because it is so incredibly advanced, it might be able to capture things that your typical AI might not be able to. So I think this made a lot of people happy to hear that. And
Including Eric Bard. Yeah.
Yeah, Eric is like, thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure. He's got to be overwhelmed.
Oh, yeah. After looking through a terabyte of data, Jimmy, I mean, yeah.
So, what a great finale! I'm excited for next season. You know,
It's
I
gonna be interesting. I don't know anything about it. I'm just like everybody else. I'm in the dark, but I will say for the majority of this roundtable, I was looking at Jay Stratton the most, and his expressions were consistently like this. But that's just me. That's what I was looking at. But this was a really interesting roundtable filled with a really great recap, some of their most compelling pieces of evidence, but also the biggest takeaway was what Luna Sound had to provide, and that Omnitech and Skinwalker Ranch will be working together. So there's a lot to come, I'm going to assume, in this upcoming season. And the biggest thing is that these are just your average people. Like when it comes to the Skinwalker Ranch team, these are just your average people that happen to be on television, but they are doing real experiments. They are doing real tests, and just not all of it makes it on the TV show. One is, for the TV show, it's merely entertainment, but for these team members that are working at the ranch, it is a job and it is documentation. So that is something to keep in mind when anyone wants to rewatch the previous seasons. But that is it for this review and our last one.
Man, what are we gonna do? We're gonna sign off now. I've got Fade to Black later on tonight. I've got everybody. I'll let you know. I've got Dr. Bruce Solheim on the show tonight. We're going to be talking about time and the paranormal and things, and the foundation of all of his books and his journey through the paranormal and time. So that's tonight, and we've got to sign off. But yet I've got my own Jeremiah Void. What are we going to do?
Well, tomorrow for Mysteries with the History, we're going to do a dissection and analysis on the UAP witness hearing and everything that has happened since. Not only will we look at what was said during the hearing, but what has been published online afterwards, which is some pretty interesting information if you haven't been keeping up. So make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell so you do not miss tomorrow's episode at 2:30 p.m. PST for Mysteries with a History. But that is it for today. I will see you guys tomorrow. Be safe, and remember, keep your eyes on the skies. Oh, just kidding.